Good afternoon, everybody. I am proud to be joined by my colleagues, Senators Warner, Blumenthal, and Smith. Take your stuff elsewhere or talk lower, one of the two. Okay, the 2020 primary elections are happening right now. The national election, as you know, is just 9 months away. Putin, China, and others are already gearing up to undermine the public confidence in the integrity of our elections and poison the well of our grand democracy. FBI Director Wray, virtually every member of the national security and intelligence community has warned us of this danger of foreign nations interfering. The President of the United States, amazingly and deeply unfortunately, has been very public about his openness, his eagerness for foreign assistance and manipulation in support of his election. That's appalling, utterly appalling. At different times, the President has invited Russia, Ukraine, China to investigate his political opponents. Of course, the President was just impeached over this issue, and the Senate just concluded a trial in which it appeared a bipartisan majority of senators broadly accepted the fact that the President leveraged hundreds of millions of dollars of military assistance to coerce the Ukrainian government to investigate one of his political rivals. The end of the President's impeachment trial does not mean the issue of election security is somehow over. Far from it. We now have an even greater need to safeguard our elections, more than before. The President tried to cheat in our elections. Senate Republicans, Leader McConnell, just looked the other way. What message does that send? If President Trump thinks he can get away with anything, he will try to cheat again. We all know who he is. Ask China, ask North Korea, ask Russia, or whomever he will ask them all to investigate the Democratic nominee. We know we can't trust this President to stand up for the integrity of our elections, so Congress must. That's our solemn and sacred duty. Democrats are not going to stop fighting to put additional safeguards before the 2020 elections. Earlier, my colleagues, Senator Warner and Blumenthal here, and Senator Wyden as well, took to the Senate floor to ask unanimous consent to pass crucial election security legislation. Once again, Senate Republicans, afraid of the wrath of President Trump and Senator McConnell, blocked our efforts. That doesn't mean we're going to stop trying. We're going to keep pushing our Republican colleagues to pass these bipartisan, non-controversial bills. Leader McConnell has felt the heat on this issue. He resisted putting more money in the budget for election security until we pushed and pushed and pushed, and now we have $400 million in there. But we need substantive legislation as well. We'll see if our Republican friends are willing to stand up and do what's necessary to protect elections, something Americans have died for through the centuries. Senator Warner.
Thank you, Senator Schumer. Let me echo a couple of those comments. As somebody who spent the last 3.5 years looking at the intervention that took place in 2016, unprecedented, and there is unanimous agreement, at least from the Senate Intelligence Committee, not only that Russia intervened in 2016, but we know they and others will be back in 2020. You don't want to take our word for it. Take Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI. Take the director of the CIA, the director of National Intelligence, the NSA. The remarkable thing is it seems like the only part of our government that doesn't recognize this threat is the White House and, unfortunately, the leadership of the Senate Republicans. I think the vast majority of my colleagues in both parties would overwhelmingly vote for common sense election security legislation, making sure that we've got a paper ballot backup to make sure every vote is counted, making sure there's a post-election audit, making sure there's appropriate reporting for the large companies that control 90% of all the voter files. This is not hard stuff. Let's make sure we go ahead and take up, again, bipartisan legislation. Let me cite 2 examples. The Honest Ads Act, something that even the social media companies like Facebook and Twitter have acknowledged is needed. So if somebody says they are Chuck from New York, but it's actually Boris from St. Petersburg, Americans ought to have that right to know that. That's what the Honest Ad Act would do. Or another piece of bipartisan legislation, the Fire Act. This, in another time, probably might not need it to be a law, but it says explicitly that if a foreign government offers to intervene to either help or tarnish any presidential candidate, the obligation of that presidential campaign, regardless of who they are, is not to say thank you, but to actually call the FBI. Should that be such a hard piece of legislation to pass? I know that bill would get at least 80 votes if Leader McConnell would let it come to the floor. We are into the election season. The warning lights are flashing. We will not do our duty to this country if we don't make sure our democracy and fair elections are protected come 2020. I think it's up next is Dick Blumenthal.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader Schumer. You know, in another time, election security would be an absolutely bipartisan, not controversial issue. As we came here, I learned, I think we all learned, that the president, again, is interfering in the rule of law and Department of Justice, overruling frontline prosecutors to seek a more lenient sentence for Roger Stone. Absolutely stomach-turning. For anyone like myself who has been a federal prosecutor, I was U.S. attorney, not to mention member of the Judiciary Committee, again, political interference through his henchman, William Barr, in the justice system. Absolutely abhorrent to the rule of law. And also, through William Barr, welcoming dirt on a political opponent from his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. William Barr said yesterday that he has established a special backdoor pipeline for Rudy Giuliani to channel dirt on his political rivals from Ukraine, likely from Russia. Nobody needs a complicated playbook to see what is happening again in America. 2016 was just a dress rehearsal from what we are seeing now in plain sight foreign interference in our free elections. And that is why we're here today on all of these measures. In particular, I'm here on the Duty to Report Act. It's already illegal to solicit foreign interference. It's already illegal to accept foreign interference or aid in an election. Reporting it is a moral duty, it's a patriotic duty, it's common sense. But we need to make it a matter of law so that a president of the United States who says there apparently is nothing wrong with accepting or soliciting foreign assistance and interference in a political campaign is made to report it. And this kind of lawlessness gravely imperils our free elections. We're in the midst of them right now. We're seeing a repeat of 2016. We need to take action right now for political interference that our intelligence community says is taking place in real time right now. Thank you.
Senator Blumenthal. Senator Smith.
Good afternoon. So how is it that protecting our election from foreign interference, protecting the integrity of our democratic process, has become a partisan issue? Well, Mitch McConnell has made it so. We have overwhelming evidence, as you've heard, that hostile foreign powers like Russia are interfering in our election and our democratic elections, and we should be doing everything we can to stop that from happening. And that is why we need to pass Senator Klobuchar's bill, the Election Security Act, which would ensure that those on the front lines of our elections have the resources they need to protect the integrity of our democratic process. Now, this bill has common sense measures like requiring paper backup ballots, like testing, like cybersecurity standards to ensure the integrity of our election process. And this bill provides grants to states to help states who run our elections make sure that those elections work for democracy. And yet, Mitch McConnell refuses to bring this bipartisan bill forward for a vote. Election security is an American issue. It is not a partisan issue. And Mitch McConnell needs to stop blocking this bill.
Thank you, Senator Smith. One other point I want to make, just augmenting what Senator Blumenthal said about Roger Stone and the interference. The President seems to think the entire Justice Department is just his personal lawsuit to prosecute his enemies and help his friends. Rule of law in this grand, grand tradition in this wonderful Justice Department is just being totally perverted to Donald Trump's own personal desires and needs, and it's a disgrace. Roger Stone should get the full amount of time the prosecutors recommended. And we're gonna do some oversight of that. Chad.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. Why will we not have echoes of impeachment affecting Democrats adversely as we go into the fall? Senator Smith is up, swing state. Why is that not going to be a negative?
The American, been a positive for us. Overwhelmingly, the American people, including in all of the tougher states, wanted both witnesses and documents. Overwhelmingly, people go home and they are still asked, why wasn't there witnesses and documents? I just had an instance where someone came over to me, staunch Republican, Trump person, said, what was that all about? And a lady came over and said, I'm a Republican, but I don't see anything wrong with witnesses and documents. Contrary to what Leader McConnell said, our data shows every one of the Republicans in difficult races is hurting because of it. Yes.
On that, do you think impeachment has hurt Joe Biden, the president?
I have no idea.
But do you think
Yes. No, that's, I don't know.
Do you think that just the overall narrative, though, has been damaging to the Democratic primary? And
No, I don't. I think overall, the American people realized that it was a sham trial, and whether they agreed that the president should be thrown out of office or not, and a small majority did, 50%, they overwhelmingly said there ought to be witnesses and documents. Why are Republican senators hiding the truth? Yes.
Late last night, the Federal Transit Administration raised the rating to the portal bids, but kept Gateway as a very low rating. What do you think that's the case?
This is once again Donald Trump being vindictive, nasty, and not doing what's in the national interest. And it always, always, always catches up with you.
So on the War Powers resolution this week, do you think you're going to get enough Republican support to pass it? And then what effect does it have if the president is just going to veto it?
Tim Kaine has done a great job here. There are 4 Republican co-sponsors. We expect every one of the 47 Democrats to be for it. So yes, there will be a majority. The president will veto it, but it sends a shot across his bow that the majority of the Senate and the majority of the House do not want the president waging war without congressional approval. And once again, the American people are overwhelmingly on our side. Yes. No, you.
Okay. Where do you stand? Where does the Democratic caucus stand on Senator Grassley and Wyden's prescription drug bills? Leader McConnell was out here before, and he said the Republican caucus is divided.
Yep.
Is the Democratic caucus all up on Wyden?
Look, we are strongly for H.R. 3. We believe that is the strongest way to deal with high prescription drug prices, and there's tremendous support in our caucus, as there is in the House, for H.R. 3. That's what we want. We don't want to settle. And we've also told Leader McConnell that if he wants to bring any drug bill to the floor, we will demand a vote on H.R. 3. Yes. Yes. No. Go
War
ahead.
Powers vote, is it happening tomorrow, and are you sure the presidential candidates will be here tomorrow?
Okay. It is not, the debate will be tomorrow. I believe the vote, the ultimate vote, will be Thursday. You know, you do have the power, members have the power to offer amendments to the War Powers Act. That has to be worked out. But I believe the vote will be Thursday, and I believe every one of the Democrats will be here, barring illness or something like that. Okay, thank you. We'll take, yes, I didn't call you before, yes.
on the ground in Iowa last week, some Democratic voters told me that they feel like this is one of the ways to kind of embolden and help President Trump. What is your response to those?
Our response is what I said before. The American people were overwhelmingly on the side of witnesses and documents. The majority of Republicans are. And I think most Americans realize that there was a giant cover-up which Republican senators participated in. That is not serving them well in the numbers now, and it will not serve them well in the numbers later. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.